Welcome to Insights into Northeast Michigan, a WBKB News public affairs program. Insights deals with the issues affecting those within the community, as well as Northeast Michigan and the state. And now, Insights into Northeast Michigan.
Welcome to Insights. I'm Sherry Stewart. Well, you may have noticed that the nights are getting cooler, and in just another couple weeks, many Michigan roads will be brimming with the beautiful colors of fall. Our county road agencies are experts on the best viewing spots, and joining me today to talk about the best viewing spots in our area is Ryan Breggy, Managing Director for the Alpena County Road Commission. Well, Ryan, I want to thank you for spending time with us today to talk about the fall colors.
Oh, no problem.
So some of the recommendations, according to the release that came out from the commission, is that Bolton Road to Long Lake Road, Nicholson Hill Road, Scott Road, and Long Rapids Road. Do you agree with those in terms of where we can all see these beautiful fall colors in just another couple weeks?
Yeah, I do. I think those are great choices, actually.
And you had another recommendation, too.
Yeah, I think Lear Road in the northwestern corner of the county would be another great place. You know, it's also a location of some of our local sinkholes. You know, it's one of the more recently paved roads, so good condition, nice traveling.
So when you just mentioned paved roads, so how is the commission getting ready for as we get into the colder months and keeping roads safe for us as, you know, the snow is eventually going to come? How is our work life? Is it really busy this time?
It is. There's not as much road work that we do, with the exception of some of our gravel roads. We'll want to try and get those dressed up so we don't have a lot of holes and whatnot in them. You know, rough roads going into winter, because of course once they freeze, we can't grade them.
Right.
We are, you know, our crews are working very hard to prep our trucks, because truck preparation is different from summer months to winter months. You know, we prep them with plows and whatnot. So.
And so getting back to the fall road tour, as it's been termed, what are your recommendations in terms of safety? I know when we see these beautiful colors sprouting, I think the natural inclination is to kind of slow down and take a good look, but do you have some safety tips for us as we're traveling these different areas and encounter just beautiful trees sprouting with all these different colors?
Yeah, certainly. I would definitely suggest, if possible, to you know, team up with another person or other persons, you know, so you have one person driving and paying attention to the road.
Yeah, that's a great idea.
Yeah, and you know, if they did want to pull off, most of those roads recommended, you know, they've got pretty wide areas on them, or maybe even turn off on an intersection. There's a lot of intersecting roads. If they want to turn off and stop, that way they're not impeding traffic.
Those are some great suggestions. Now, will you yourself be doing this fall road tour?
I'm out on our roads on a weekly basis, so I pretty much am on a fall tour the entire time.
So was this list surprising to you at all? Are these roads that obviously you're familiar with, but were you surprised by the ones that did make the list this year?
Not really. With the choices on there, and especially Nicholson Hill and Scott Road, are it's right in the name, Nicholson Hill. It's a hilly area, so you know, you can look over some larger expanses of trees and whatnot. You know, Bolton Road, a lot of large farm fields, so you've got a lot of trees in the distance and whatnot, see a lot of different colors. So no, I think it's a good list.
Okay, well, we really appreciate that. Let's just segue for a little bit about, I know life has changed for everybody during COVID-19, and you just recently took over this role as the managing director here. How is everything going? What are some of the adjustments that your team has had to make?
We've obviously had to, you know, implement plans, cleaning protocols and whatnot, trying to keep the crew separated as much as we can, keep them working on their own, but you know, we also do have a duty to maintain the roads. So it has been quite a balance, and I feel we've been successful. So.
And what do you love most about this role?
You know, I'm a lifelong Alpena resident, and I'm well invested in the community, and love the place, and so to me it's just being able to contribute back. And keep things moving forward the way they were when I took over. So.
And since you're a longtime Alpena native, I know you have many times people come to visit. What are some of the things that people really tell you when it's their first time visiting here?
They're very impressed actually with our downtown, you know, and I think we need to recognize that. You know, we do have a great small community here. You know, obviously our roads out through the county and whatnot, outside of a color tour or traveling from one of our Great Lakes to another area, there's not much to see beyond that. But they also are, I think folks are very happy with the condition of our roads, and we plan to continue to maintain them that way. So.
Yeah, that's something that you do often hear, is that people are really surprised that the roads are really maintained and kept in such good condition up here.
Yeah, we've definitely had a focus on an ongoing maintenance plan, and I, in taking over the position, intend to keep that up, because that's very important to maintain that, keep them in good condition.
Well, Ryan, I want to thank you for spending time with us today to talk about the fall colors. I know we segued into a couple other topics, but a very good conversation today.
Yeah, no, thank you.
All right, thank you for joining us.
All right.
Insights will return after these messages.
Welcome back to Insights. Joining us now is local author Janet Young. Welcome to the show.
Thank you. Glad to be here.
Absolutely. And we're really looking forward to talking about your latest book, Janet, Presqu'île Shipwreck Alley. So let's just start out. This is just such a fascinating topic. Michigan and the shipwrecks and all that happens, and what's resting under the waters here. So let's just start. How did you get started researching and delving into this topic?
Well, it started with when I started with my first book, if we go back there, because I did the history of Presqu'île Harbor, and it was one of the first steamboat wooding stations, and had in the 1830s. So I got really, really deeply into that history. And along the way, when I was going over like the lighthouse keepers' records, and I did the old newspaper clippings from the 1800s, they would talk about bodies washing up on shore. But not knowing what ships were out there at the time or anything about it, I didn't know their stories. They would just tell about how they would bury them in the sand and things like that. So I got interested in the ships at that point. And also, as a child, when I grew up at Presqu'île, we used to spend hours and hours beachcombing. And I'm sorry to say I know better now, but then I didn't. If we would find like wood washed up on shore, I remember my grandfather saying, "Oh, that's the door from a ship that probably went down." You can't do that anymore. But so we used to find things like that. So I always had a curiosity about what it was. And then with the Thunder Bay National Marine Sanctuary, they a few years ago put Presqu'île as part of their sanctuary. So when they did that, that kind of opened up the door for me, because then they listed the names of some of the ships that were out there, and as they would find more. Now that I had names, I could research and find out everything and more that there was to find out about them.
So just a natural curiosity. Yes. Yeah. So tell me then, how do you go about doing the research, or how did you go about the research? Did you just comb old records? How did you go about starting this?
It started years and years and years ago. I've always had a love for history. And whenever I was in a museum or a university library, I'd always go to the section on Michigan and then quickly go to the index and try to find something on Presqu'île, Lake Huron. There's lots of Presqu'îles. There's a Presqu'île on Lake Superior, and one in Wisconsin and all over. And I really could find very, very little on Presqu'île Lake Huron, my Presqu'île, so I wanted to know more. But whenever I found anything, and it was really pretty sparse, I would write it down and keep it. And then when I started writing the book, I did have just a little bit, but I was determined that everybody should know about my Presqu'île or our Presqu'île. So, and I love to research. So what I do is, when I got the name of the vessel, I would get some of the initial articles in the 1800s. And then if they mentioned the name of the captain, then I would research the captain and get his history and go on Ancestry and look for a family tree.
Oh my.
Then when I found where the captain or anybody that I was researching, it could have been the boat owner or anything, then I would look for where they were born and raised, and then research the local histories in that community, if they'll talk about shipbuilding or mention that person, so I could really try to get to know the person. So that was really, really extensive.
It sounds just fascinating. How long did it take you? So you have 3 books. So how long did it take you? Let's just start with your first one. How long did it take you to?
That actually was like a lifetime thing. When I was growing up at Grand Lake, my grandmother, who I was very close to, when she was a little girl, she was raised at a hotel, one of the first hotels at Grand Lake. And she would always tell me stories about it, and I would write it down. It got to the point when Grandma would start to say something, I was like, Grandma, I got that. I've already written that down.
Okay.
Then when she died, I inherited a trunk full of pictures that weren't identified. And I could tell that some were family members, but then some were probably guests at the hotel, some were probably workers at the hotel. So I went through and asked everybody I could, the older people, including my mother and aunts, and they'd say, no, this is so-and-so, or no, they were a guest. And then I took it to other people outside of the family, and if they would say, oh, well, that was my grandfather when he was a guest, and they'll give me more pictures and then tell me their stories of being at Birch Hill. So to make a really long story short, I ended up with a notebook about 4 inches, and then that developed into more and more, and finally I had about 12 notebooks filled with history. And I knew that the history of Presqu'Île had not been told because of all my research. So the people would tell me their stories, give me their pictures, and so it grew and grew, and everybody said, you know, you should write a book, but I wasn't a writer. But the time came when I did. Then, when I started to write the first book, I'd promised my grandmother that I would do that. So I thought, well, you know, if you promise Grandma.
Yeah, you really can't back out of that.
Hopefully she knows that she wanted that story to be told. So I thought it was the first hotel. But when I started digging around some more, I found out that some of the people came by boat to Presqu'Île Harbor, the old side wheel steamers and things like that. And I thought, oh, I didn't know that was there. So that led me to do Presqu'Île Harbor, to figure out who was living there and doing all that. And then at Presqu'Île, we've got 2 lighthouses. Yeah. And so in doing that, then I did the same thing. With the research, I got all through the National Archives, got all the lighthouse records and all the range light records. And then I was fortunate enough, once you start getting your fingers out there and talking to people, and then because I was a local person and not writing from some distance, I kind of knew some of the people that were descendants. So I ended up getting like the leather-bound records from Frederick Burnham, who had the first, well, he wasn't the first, but he's along the way. From 1850 to 1880, he kept a counter ledger that had every boat that stopped in.
Oh my,
how much coal or wood, they were wood burning at the time, and following through on the lumberjacks and who lived at the harbor and what they bought.
Oh my.
And if I hadn't done that, those would have still been in someone's basement.
This is so fascinating. Hold that thought. We've got to continue on, but we want to get to this latest, the gems that are in here. Yes. So we will have more of Insights when we come back.
Insights will return after these messages.
Well, welcome back to Insights. We're continuing our conversation with Janet Young. She is the author of Presqu'Île's Shipwreck Alley, and this is your 3rd book. And at the break, we were just talking about all this incredible research that you've compiled to put this book together.
I am kind of compulsive about it, and I always go, leave no stone unturned. So because I had written about the lighthouses before, I had all the lighthouse records at my disposal, so that when I'm writing about the shipwrecks, if there's anything to do with the lighthouse or the light-saving stations, I have all that information so I can add that to it. Or actually, sometimes even go back and check the weather on the date it went down.
That is just such rich research and history. And what the wonderful thing in here is that you have all these images, so of just artifacts.
I'm
and just
lucky that my brother, who is a businessman, Young Appliance, but Bob, also is a very great artist. He painted the cover, so it's really nice. So I can say, I want something in blue and white that shows action and maybe a little danger, and he can do that. And in all the 16 chapters then, he did a picture of the boat to start the chapter with. He did some pen and ink drawings that are just really beautiful.
It is.
And then at the end, I worked with Noah, and I've got all these wonderful, wonderful underwater pictures to show the wreck itself. And I interviewed divers too, so they could tell me what it was like to dive on the wrecks.
Wow, this is so incredible. So tell me, what is the most fascinating thing to you as you were doing this third book? What did you find just so startling and amazing?
Everything. I mean, I love doing the research, and every time I found something new about something, I'd get excited about it until I found the next one, then I'd get excited about that. But the stories are really good, and I like to weave a story together with as many details I can and get all the first-hand experiences. Even on the ships that went down in 1850, there's usually a court case. There's always lawsuits every time a boat sinks. So if I can get the legal records and the testimony, then I can hear what the captains would say. But I don't want to burst a lot of people's bubbles, but usually when you think of a shipwreck, it's probably of this storm, and there were a few on that, but most of them, in my book, 70% of them were all collisions.
Oh, I read some of that. Yeah, I read some of that. I noticed that. Now you covered, what is it, 17 shipwrecks, 17?
Well, there's actually more. I have 16 chapters, but 17 of Presqu'île shipwreck. But when I was going through and researching the captains, and then I would find their prior life, sometimes like this may have they had other shipwrecks, so I would talk about that. So when you look at the wood lying on the bottom, it's not just wood. You know, there was somebody who built it, and I would get their story. Maybe they were born in Scotland and learned how to build ships as a boy. So, and I would get pictures of some of the passengers and get their stories too, so that I would hope if somebody is diving on it or going over it, they'll think of this and the people and not just a pile of wood.
Yeah, as you say, you definitely left no stone unturned, and yeah, I cannot wait to read this. But tell me about how you actually started the whole writing process, and I know there's a little bit of history behind this mug that we have here.
Well, like I said, I was accumulating information, and I always thought it should be presented. It shouldn't just be something that I had. But the coffee cup I've had on my desk for years. I think I got it like from PBS, and saying, what would you attempt to do if you knew you would not fail? And I thought, oh, I'd write and publish books. But I didn't have a background. I majored in history, science, and math. I didn't major in literature. So when I decided to do that, I said, okay, I'm going to do it. And so I went to Barnes & Noble and bought every book I could on writing. And I sat there on the floor at Barnes & Noble's, flipped through stacks and picked out probably a dozen that I thought, oh, this could tell me something. So I taught myself how to do it.
Incredible.
And then laying out a book, I taught myself how to do that too. I've always loved art anyway, so that was the easy part.
So what would you tell someone that, you know, I believe everybody has a book within them. What would you tell them to
do? Just do it. I mean, the only way to do it is to do it. And, well, of course, you have to know something about writing, but you can buy books on that or take classes, and you know what you like and take it from there.
Absolutely.
And it's not just writing a book, it's whatever you want to do. Whatever your goal is, go for it.
I like that.
Yeah.
I like that attitude. So tell us, where can we get a copy of this? I know that many people are wanting to read this. I know I'm definitely going to be reading this. I mean, I love history, and this is just really fascinating.
And I did, in all three of the books, have them. They were published in full color, and I wanted a heavier weight paper, so I think a book should feel good and look good, and to do all that. Right now it's on Amazon, and it's also a Kindle book too. It's in that format. Locally, they're at Young Appliance and My Stop, which is the Citgo gas station, Besser Museum, Sand Bay Trading Company, and the Portage Store out at Presque Isle Harbor. It will be at NOAA and other places once they're open after the pandemic.
Hopefully that's coming soon.
That will be a perfect home for it.
Absolutely, yeah. Well, Janet, we are just so just thrilled to have you join us today to tell us a little bit about all the gems that are in your latest book here. And so I know many people will be looking forward to getting a copy of that. So just thank you for coming in and sharing your story and how you went from not writing to writing 3 books with all this rich history that
and the
we
fourth
can.
is coming out
Absolutely,
too.
another one. Outstanding. So we're looking forward.
Thank you. I enjoyed this.
Thank you. Well, that does it for this week's Insights. If you have a question, comment, or story idea, we'd love to hear from you. You can email us at news@wbkb11.com. I'm Sherry Stewart. Thank you again for watching.
Insights into Northeast Michigan is produced by WBKB News. This has been a production of Thunder Bay Broadcasting Corporation. All rights reserved.